Supposed to leave Italy the next day. I can't leave without this watch. So I called up Matt and I'm like, Matt, how much money do you have on you? Bring it on over. Don't ask questions. I'll tell you later. Welcome to our new segment of our channel, which we'll be telling, along with some of our guests, our favorite watch stories. To kick things off, I figured I would retell the story of my favorite watch purchase. This happened really early on in my watch dealing career. I had just won my very first auction. Well, it wasn't my first auction purchase, but it was by and large, in a way, the biggest one I'd made to date. The watch was around $100,000, and it was located in Rome in Italy. I didn't have a lot of experience with shipping and all of that stuff at the point, especially on such larger purchases. The watch, by the way, was a very rare steel Patek Calatrava reference 570 with a Houseman and Co-sign dial. It was a fantastic watch. But being nervous about shipping and customs and all of that stuff, I figured the best course of action would be to just simply fly over there and pick up the watch in person. Now that idea seems crazy to me because we just ship everything with FedEx or Malca Meat, Armored Car Service. But at the time I was like, you know what, I'm just going to fly over and go pick up the watch myself. That'd be the easiest and safest way to do it. So I booked a flight, flew all the way over to Rome, Italy from Miami, and scheduled a time to meet with the auction house to pick up the watch. While I was there, I booked a trip for several days, figuring it might take a few days to accomplish everything. I went watch hunting around the city, walking around. I was able to actually buy a few smaller watches. I remember buying a really cool Zodiac triple date watch. I bought an Eberhard chronograph. And the craziest part was, though, is that right across the street from my hotel, I must have walked in and out of the hotel at least a half a dozen to a dozen times before I noticed a small little shop down a small set of stairs where in the window they had a case of watches. There wasn't anything super interesting in there. There was one really cool 1940s Universal Genève chronograph. And so I'd walk by it, wasn't really interested in much, so went back to my hotel. A couple days later, because I think I flew in over a weekend and I went to see the auction house on a Monday when they were open, I picked up the watch that I'd purchased, the Patek Philippe, and the strap that was on it was incredibly long. So I was really in the mood to wear the watch. I was super excited that it was probably my biggest purchase to date. Just flew to Rome, Italy. I thought I needed to go buy a strap, and I'd remembered that the little watch store across the street sold straps. So I walked over to the store and I walked in. I started speaking with the owner. It was a very small shop with just one guy, the owner of the shop, working there, and asked to buy a strap. We sat down and he really didn't speak a lot of English, so communication was really spotty. After he got the strap, he starts asking me if I like watches, and in particular he says, do you like Speedmaster 321? That was basically all I said. I said, yeah, sure, of course I like Speedmasters, I like 321s. So he goes back behind his desk, behind the counter, and opens up his safe and he pulls out a watch and he hands it to me. And it really just took my breath away, and I tried to play it cool. Was really kind of in shock at what he had handed me. It was an Omega Speedmaster from the 1960s, the Ed White version, reference 105003. But what was really special about this watch is it had a metallic, quote-unquote, prototype Soleil dial, something incredibly rare. And usually these dials are all peeled. There's only a handful of them known, and they're not in great condition, generally speaking, with a lot of peeling on the dial. And this one looked like it was perfect. I only had a few seconds with the watch before he took it back from me, and so I asked him how much. He had told me that it wasn't his watch, it was his friend's watch, and he had to ask him and call him, and I said, please let me know I'm interested. And he asked me to come back to the shop later. This was in the morning. He asked me to come back in the afternoon. So I left the shop, and my heart's kind of racing, and I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't leave. I'm supposed to leave Italy the next day. I can't leave without this watch. I go back a few hours later, still says, no, come back later, it's my friend's watch. But I also realized at this point that the couple $1,000s that I brought with me to Italy was not going to suffice, and I didn't have enough money on me, and I couldn't just go to an ATM or go to a bank, since I'm in a foreign country, and pull out enough money that's going to cost me to get this watch. I had remembered that a good friend of mine, Mr. Matthew Bain of Matthew Bain Inc., another vintage watch dealer, was in town vacationing at the same time that I was there to pick up the watch. So I called up Matt, and I'm like, Matt, how much money do you have on you? And he goes, why? And I said, well, listen, there's a watch. How much money do you have on you? He's like, I got a few €1,000. And I'm like, listen, as much as you got, sending you my address right now, bring it on over. Don't ask questions, I'll tell you later. So Matt comes over, brings me several €1,000. I'm hoping that's going to be enough. I end up going back to the shop, and the shop owner gave me a price, and he changed it 3 times. I think he started at like $7,000, and then, oh, no, sorry, it's $7,500. Sorry, it's $8,000. Every time The price just kept increasing, but I'm keeping it cool. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers. I really want this watch. And at the same time, I'm also asking him if I can see the watch again, because he hadn't shown it to me a second time. And he keeps giving me some weird excuse as to why he couldn't show it to me and he wouldn't pull it out of the safe. Oh no, it's my friend's watch. And he walks over a computer, starts typing some things. I realized later, much later after I left the shop, that the real reason that he could not show me the watch a second time, or at least until a certain time later, and why he wanted me to come back later, is because he had a time lock safe. Now, these are safes that are specifically designed that once you close them, they can't be opened for a certain amount of time so that somebody can't break in and force you to open your safe and steal the contents. So finally around, I think it was around 6, 7 o'clock now in the afternoon, it's evening, he opens the safe, shows me the watch again, and I really just wanted to make sure that my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, that it was what I thought it was, because I had a quick glance at it, had it in my hands for maybe 20 seconds before, and I just really couldn't believe that I was going to have the opportunity to buy one of these watches in such great condition, fresh to market. He pulls out the watch, and it's everything I thought it was. We ended up agreeing on a price after 3 or 4 negotiations of him raising the price, and it was luckily the exact amount, or almost the exact amount in cash that I had left on me, including Matt's money, who had loaned to me or let me borrow for the time being. And finally, after I go to shake his hand on our final agreement, he tries to increase the price another 500 euros or 1,000 euros. And I pull out my wallet, and I had a feeling this was going to happen based on our prior interactions. And again, the communication was really spotty. I was literally calling people in America to translate for me who spoke Italian. Google Translate wasn't great at the time. This is, like 10 years ago at this point. And he said, oh, he wants 1,000 more euros. I pulled out my wallet. I had a 500 euro note in there waiting for this to happen. I pulled it out and I said, final, that's all I have. Reached out my hand, he shook my hand, counted the money, counted it 3 times, I think, just to, be extra sure, hands me the watch, shakes my hand, and I turn around and walk out the door with this amazing Ed White. We had ended up placing it, because we really didn't know the market value of the watch at the time, in Christie's about a year later. And it set a world record for an Ed White at the time, selling for, I believe, around $60,000. And it was just absolutely an incredible experience and something I never expected to happen. Just right place, right time.